Hi, and welcome to Learn with Sawgrass, the live workshop. I am Rhonda, the education manager here at Sawgrass, and we do join you every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I know we're a little late. We'll talk about that in a second. But we join you live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern right here on YouTube. And that is in the Learn with Sawgrass playlist if you ever come back and look later. And then we also are now dropping one pre-recorded workshop per week, usually Thursday or Friday. I'm hoping to get into cadence where it's always Thursday, but we're headed that way. So thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we're a little late. I always feel bad working for such a tech-heavy company and saying that I had technical difficulties, but it happens sometimes. We did finally get everything working, so we are so glad you're here with us. So the purpose of everything we do here is to help you succeed with Sawgrass. We're going to tell you about our printers. We're going to tell you about our inks, and then we are going to talk to you about our software, and we're also going to hopefully give you some inspiration and then some tips to help grow your business. So join us here live every Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern, and then just keep an eye on the channel because we always drop some more content as well. Now for today, Rhodes is with me behind the camera. So if you do have any questions or want to make any comments, please drop them in the chat and he'll be glad to answer those. So let's go ahead and jump in. So today is special. So, you know, I always think of it as like a family meeting, right? Like ever so often you just need to meet and do a few updates. So we have had VersiFlex ink. I just saw the photos in my archives. It has been a year ago since we started sending out product to users to test with VersiFlex. So we're kind of running into that point of it's been a year since we started working on everything, a year since we started talking about VersiFlex. And I like to kind of sometimes just bring it back, talk about our learnings, because we are constantly learning. It's one of my favorite things about working at Sawgrass. I get to work with some amazing chemists, which is something that young Rhonda would have thought I would never say. And so when we have an issue, when things come up, we can always like diagnose, look through it, figure out what will work, and then also we get to talk about why it didn't work. So we've had a lot of learnings in a year, so I think it's a good time to just kind of summarize, to go back, to talk about VersiFlex, talk about what we know, and what we're learning as we go. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So let's talk first about VersiFlex. So as I say, every time I go to a trade show, if you know Sawgrass, you probably know our sublimation ink. We have been in business for over 35 years. We are located in Charleston, South Carolina, and predominantly we've spent those 37 years making sublimation ink, which is currently our Sublijet UHD ink for our Sawgrass SG1000 and then our smaller model, the SG500. If you know sublimation, and most of you do, the thing about sublimation is that any product you use has to have a poly coating. So we talk about fabric, that's going to be a polyester fabric. When we talk about anything else, it's going to have that poly coating on it, like my drinkware here, like a lot of our products. But from my first day at Sawgrass, over 7.5, well, right around 7.5 years now, just shy of 7.5 years now, I have heard two things. First of all, you want to go on to cotton fabric. And then second of all, I've heard that you want to be able to just go to a home improvement store, pick up some wood and press onto it without having to buy wood that's already poly-coated or poly-coat it yourself, because I do get those questions too. So what our newest ink set, VersiFlex, does, and I can say happy birthday VersiFlex, I think it's technically right at a year old. What VersiFlex does is it is an ink set for the SG500 and SG1000 that allows you to do both. So with my VersiFlex ink and true sublimation paper, I can do sublimation just as I always have. If I change that paper and use my VersiFlex light paper, now I can go on to all those things that were off limits. So I'm able to go on to pretty much any fabric out there, but especially what everyone wants to hear is cotton fabric. And then I'm also able to go on to products that aren't coated for sublimation, such as my wood, which is probably my favorite. And then you also can do an unglazed ceramic and some other products as well. If you've been around a while, right before Christmas, I actually pressed onto some paper and to some cardstock, and that works successfully as well. So we'll talk more about that as we go further through today. So that's kind of the basics of VersiFlex. So I'm going to run down, I'm going to categorize this into 4 sections. We're going to talk about sublimation with VersiFlex. We're going to talk about VersiFlex light fabric, or VersiFlex light paper on fabric, VersiFlex light paper on uncoated products like wood, and then we're going to talk about everything else that's out there. So let's start with sublimation. I still get this question, so I want to state it. A year in, my answer is the same as it has been the entire time. Nothing changes with sublimation when you're using VersiFlex ink. Now, just as a reminder, you cannot switch ink. So you can't switch between the Sublegit and then put in the VersiFlex ink. You do have to get a brand new printer. The ink is different. But when doing sublimation, using sublimation transfer paper, nothing changes. So all the things we're going to talk about in a little bit, about it going on wet and having to go on immediately and the hot peel and all of that, don't worry about it. Everything with sublimation stays the same. Now, one important point I want to make is the color stays the same. So one of those kind of myths that we've had to bust over the last year is that because we do not have a black cartridge and the sublimation is completely off of CMY, that your blacks are not bold enough, your blacks are not strong enough, and that is not the truth. The composite black that's made from the CMY is just as strong as the black you're getting with the Sublegit. So you're still getting a great result. You know, our black has always been a composite. It's never completely came out of the black channel. So it's just more out of the other 3, but nothing changes. It stays the same. The blacks are going to be really solid. I'm going to hold up a shirt in a minute. You're going to see just how solid that is. So I want to start off with the sublimation piece and say, don't worry about it. Nothing changes. It's exactly the same. I have no new findings there. Everything is exactly as it has been. All right. So I just want to talk, before we go specifically into fabric and specifically into wood, I just kind of want to establish how VersiFlex works. So as we said, it is a CMY, and then what would normally be in the black channel is black. What now goes in there is a cartridge of what we call the expander. So this is a CMYE. The expander is a liquid that gets laid down anywhere ink gets laid down when you're using the VersiFlex light paper. And because of that, anything that has ink is what transfers. So it's basically a self-weeding paper. The expander lays down with the ink, and that's what makes only those sections transfer, and that's why it is self-weeding. So that's where the expander comes in. Just again, let me state it. The expander does not get laid down when you're doing sublimation. It only gets laid down when you're using the VersiFlex light paper. And so whenever you're using the VersiFlex light paper, the expander is getting laid down with the ink. That's what makes it self-weeding. So what happens is the paper bonds with the product. So for this to happen, fabric really, well, we'll talk about where fabric becomes an issue, but typically what we're talking about here is those hard surfaces. And the thing to remember is they need to be porous. They need to be able to accept that ink so the ink can bond with it. So where this becomes an issue is there's one line of things that people would love to be able to have non-coated, and that is drinkware. Whether we're talking about ceramic mugs, whether we're talking about stainless steel, and that is still not something that you can use with this. So you have to have the poly-coated mugs, the poly-coated stainless steel, and then you do the sublimation on them. And the reason is because that is not porous. There's nothing for it to bond with. So that's kind of still on the outside. That's not something you can do. So I always love to kind of say, I know, but it does do sublimation. So as long as you have the stainless steel that's poly-coated, you have the ceramic that's poly-coated, drinkware still works the way it always has, and you still do it off the same printer just by changing that paper out. All right, so when we talk about fabric, if you have a fabric that is specially coated, so if it is coated to be water resistant, is probably the biggest one we have found, that's not going to take the ink as well. So because of that extra coating on the fabric, even if it is a cotton or a cotton blend, it may not take the ink. So that's one of our findings, just to let you know, if it's something that's specially treated, you may have to work with it a little bit to see what works to make that happen. And we'll talk about that at the end, but it's not going to be a straight, okay, let me just put it in and press it once and it works. Just to let you know. The other thing, of course, is we do not have a white ink. So you are going to see the shirt color or the product color. So you need to make sure that it's a color that is in what we call the lights, brights, and whites. You really can't go on the super dark colors. Now, here's the thing that I always love to point out, because to me this is very important. You can go much darker than you could with polyester. I would never have attempted to press onto this red. Well, technically I did try it with polyester fabric. It didn't work. But with the cotton fabric, with the VersiFlex ink and the VersiFlex light paper, I can now go on to a relatively dark red, a relatively dark green, a mid-range blue. I could do a black design easily on what I would call a reflex blue, a middle blue. So you have a much larger range with this than you ever have before, which is really, really exciting and something that I love. I did say I was going to show an example of the black. This is a very, very solid black. It's the same color as the tag. So it is a very, very dark, very, very solid black. So I want to make sure you see that. That's important. Rhodes, do we have any questions or comments?
No, we're good right now.
Perfect. So with fabric, here are the two things that you need to consider. Well, technically three, because I've already said one. You have to make sure that it's not something that's got an extra coating, whether that's a microbacterial or antibacterial coating of any kind, or a water resistant coating. And then of course we talked about color. We'll talk about color again in a second. But the next thing is you want to make sure that the fabric can stand up to the heat. So if it is a fabric like a silk or a fabric like a leather, I guess that's a fabric. It's a fabric-like product. Those are things that may not handle the heat of the press. So we're going to talk about those things in just a little bit. But in general, if it is something that doesn't stand up to heat, that may not work as well. And then finally, we have learned so much about fabric and the garment industry this year, which is really funny because if you've ever met me, you know that my first job was in the garment industry, so I kind of feel like I'm back. So what we have learned is that no company dyes their shirts exactly the same. So one thing you do need to watch is how their dyes handle the heat, because that can be an issue too. So we've been kind of working through which brands really work well for us and everything. And I know you can do the same, just kind of play with that to see where you're having success. If you're not having success with one brand, it could definitely be the way they dye their shirts. Please try another one out there and see if that works a little better for you. Rhodes, I'm going to jump in and make a shirt in a second. So are there any questions or comments before we move on?
Not yet. Well, there might be something I break up a little bit later.
Okay, cool.
But we're good right now.
For the moment, we're good.
You're good right now. So.
Awesome. Perfect.
You want me to share your screen?
Yeah, go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so if you have not seen it, I do have our brand new education department merch. You will see that Rhodes and I now get to wear these beautiful pink shirts. So of course we make our own shirts. So we're going to keep working on that. That's actually what we're going to make today. So I am in the Sawgrass print utility. That is our free print utility software that all Sawgrass users should be using. I have already got my printer selected. My artwork is already up. You are seeing a message. You aren't seeing a message. That's actually a part of our newest update where I could, if I wanted to return this to the regular size, I could. But this is perfect. So I am, if you saw my shirt earlier, I am putting this kind of on that what we call left pocket area. So technically, you can go as wide as 5 inches on that. This we've made a slightly smaller. We went 4.75. We had tried it a little bigger yesterday, and we felt it was too big. But we didn't feel like reducing it to 5 was enough. So we took it just south of that. I'm only printing one of this. Later on, I will come in and do a few more shirts. When I do that, I probably will repeat it. And then I will space that out so that I can easily cut them. But for now, we're going to leave that at just the one. I can leave this at portrait. That's not a problem. I do need to adjust for light colors. The pink and the orange are close enough to white that I don't want to risk it. I do want to make sure that it knows to lay down that extra expander. Of course, I do need to keep this mirrored because I am pressing it onto the shirt. I'm not going to worry about centering this because I'm just going to cut this out to make it smaller. This is going onto cotton, so I'll leave it that way. And I'm going to leave my color mode at photographic because this is color accuracy is what's going to be the most important since it's our company logo. I am coming out of tray 1 and we are ready to go. All right.
When you press this shirt,
Yeah.
I want everyone to pay close attention to the level of pressure you're applying.
Yeah.
Just kind of go over why that's.
I will. We'll talk about that. All right. So, as you probably have heard, and just in case you have not, when we are using the VersiFlex light paper and the expander is laid down, the expander does need to go onto your fabric wet. So you will see that I'm going to try to get this on in about a 12-minute limit. I'm not going to be anywhere near that, so I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and trim off some of this extra. It just helps me with the centering. And this is actually perfect for me because it being right near the top is actually what's going to help me the most. I'm going to cut a little extra off my sides, get a little closer just help me with positioning. Now you're noticing this design is made so that there is white space for me to grab. You're often going to see that. It's a little harder for me if I don't have a lot of white space, just to make that easier. All right, so let's talk about this. So I got my shirt. We do have a piece of paper underneath, just because there's some stuff down there. Got on the back of a shirt yesterday, and we don't want that to happen. I'm just going to put this in.
On whose shirt?
On Rhodes's shirt. Well, technically, Rhodes, that was our sample shirt. That one doesn't really count. All right, so we're going to stretch that out nice and smooth. I am going to put this on here just so I can see where it's going to go. What we have found with this shirt is the bottom of this is perfect, and the text needs to go over to about 3. So I'm going to hold this from the bottom. You see I left myself lots of room. I'm going to position that so the text is lining up with 3. It's coming right underneath where my thing is. And that's ready for me to drop. Yeah, right there. So I'm going to drop that, take this off. I do usually cover it just to protect the shirt from anything that may be above, and then we'll go ahead and close it. Now we do go for 30 seconds. You do see this is extremely heavy pressure. We are best off with extremely heavy pressure, so we are doing that. You did see, and so this is what I want to make sure you're seeing. There was a lot of resistance when I closed that press. This is now how I determine what pressure is. So I used to go a little bit different on the way I think of it. Now, if I want to do heavy pressure, I am pretty much in a situation where I'm having to pull down very hard. Now, this is a hot peel. I do want to go ahead and get that off. Came off like butter. I am going to do a post press. I'm going to throw this back on here. And just do that for about 10 seconds. See that again, super heavy pressure. A lot of times when I do my finishing press, I don't close it all the way. I just do enough. I just kind of hold it. And that's it. So we positioned it, we pressed it, and then we pulled off the paper. We did that hot peel, and then we did another finishing press. And there we go, Rhodes's first shirt, or my second shirt, somehow or another, one or the other. All right, so that's it. Rhodes, any other questions about fabric?
Just while we're on this topic, what's the benefit of that post press?
Yeah, so what happened, and this is what I have found, so this is one of those learnings. If you attended my very first conversations, we didn't talk about a post press because I didn't know the benefit. When you are peeling, you are kind of pulling up those fibers of the shirt. So a finishing press kind of pushes those back into place. And it really does two things. First of all, it's going to improve the look because now you're getting that, well, not only the look, but the feel. You're going to get that nice, smooth feel to that. The second thing is it does improve from our testing the wash fastness. So you do get a longer wash fastness out of fabric if you have done that post press. So that finishing press, and I'm assuming it's because it is kind of pushing that deeper into the fibers, is why you do get that. Now, I said the word wash fastness before anyone can ask Rhodes the question. Let's talk about that. Industry standard is 30 washes. We do meet industry standards. When you are washing this, you are turning it inside out. You are washing and then you are hanging it out to dry. You're not putting it in the dryer. So you're doing those fabric care things just as you would with any shirt that's made in any of these methods. And then we do recommend that you wait about 48 hours before you wash it. So this shirt, I'm wearing it today. I need to make sure it doesn't get immediately put into the wash. Let's wait 48 hours after you've created it, and then you can wash that and treat that like normal. All right, any other fabric questions before we move on?
Lori says that ambassadors might need that artwork that you just pressed.
And we're leaving that specifically for our education team, sorry. And then for anyone who's joining us. So one of the cool things we've done lately is we are pulling in some other team members to do some stuff for us. Please, it probably will be Friday, but we'll have a new workshop uploaded, and it is with Pavlo from our software development team. He didn't get to wear the cool shirt, hadn't made them yet, but he will definitely, I've already seen it. He did a great job of talking about color management in the Sawgrass print utility. It's a really good walk through that. And he made some points that I've never made. So that's always the fun part about bringing someone in. And then I think we're going to have a guest host with me in a few weeks to do some crafting. So I'm really, really excited. I have some VersiFlex printing with another member of our team coming up. She will get a shirt. So really excited about that. So keep an eye out. But thank you for bringing that up. But yes, the shirts are staying in-house for now. Sorry about that. We're not going into the merch line quite yet. All right. So any other questions before I move on to wood?
No, I think we're good right now.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about wood and the things to look out for. So one of the things that I said was that the porousness is very important. So what we have learned over the past year is that woods that are softer work better, partially because they're more porous. Secondly, because they're a little more forgiving. If this were an ash wood that's extremely hard and it wasn't completely flat, there's no give. So it's not going to work with me or do me any benefits, and I'm less likely to get a perfect press with that than I am with this. So this is definitely, the softer woods are best. Now, this is an ideal thickness for wood. So even if we're talking about a wood like this, more of an MDF board kind of thing, you are looking at a thickness of this. So at least 3/8 minimum, but the thicker you are, the theory is that because of the thickness of the wood, the heat radiates better and you're going to get a better press. So that's probably one of our biggest learnings. Soft woods, make sure that it's nice and flat. If it is uneven, you are going to struggle to get a nice, even, consistent press on this. And a thicker wood is always a better wood. So I'm going to go on to this one today. I did bring this one just as a point. This is actually a little on the thick side, which is nice. You really just, if I cut off that part and just use this part, that would be a perfect thickness. So that's kind of where it works well. So we talked about the super heavy pressure on fabric. You do not have to go as heavy on the wood. And so this is a medium press. So I was saying that I used to have a way of talking about pressure. For those of you who don't have a press that tells you what the pressure is, I used to say that medium pressure is if I put a piece of paper in the press and I pulled it, it would not move. That's medium pressure. If I could pull it and it pulled out, that's light pressure. And if I pulled it and I basically had to rip it to get it to move at all, that's going to be heavy pressure. What I have learned in this year is that medium pressure is a slight resistance when you close the press. Heavy pressure is you are pulling down hard. And then light pressure is it just closes. So there's no muscle action in there at all for light pressure. Medium pressure, you do need to feel it in your arm a little bit as you pull down. And then heavy pressure should be almost to the point of struggling. So that's kind of where those three fall, and that's how I kind of look at them now. So when we do wood, we want there to be some resistance when I close it, but not a tremendous amount. If you are having a situation where it seems shiny, most likely that means that expander is staying on there. And so what you want to do with that is just crank up the pressure just like a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit of extra pressure is probably all you're going to need to fix that. So that's kind of it. That's my tips for wood. And we'll go ahead and make something. All right, so I'm going to jump into my Sawgrass design tool. You do get 2 free pieces of software when you're using Sawgrass printers and inks. One is going to be the print utility. Everybody uses the print utility. Everybody uses the print utility. But with the design tool, this is really for anyone who does not have somewhere that they're already designing. They like using the templates because it gives you the right size and shape for the product you're pressing onto and makes life really easy. And then third, if you're in the US, we do have that My Sawgrass store, which is a social selling store that you are both the seller and the producer. If you want to learn more about that, there is a great workshop that just dropped at the beginning of, or at the end of last week, expanding your business with My Sawgrass. So please check that out. I'm going to use a custom canvas on this just to kind of keep it in the right range. All right, I'm going to go about 3.5 by 3. I think this is going to be a little wide. Rhodes, do you remember my lovely gnome saying, because I forgot it?
Oh.
Is there no one like you?
No place like gnome, no one like you.
No one like you, I think it
that's
was.
What it is. Yeah, it was like the song.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to make this slightly smaller because I want to add that text.
Yeah, I remember we walked around the office thinking of gnome puns all day that day.
We did, yeah. Well, I said it to you earlier, so I just can't remember what I said.
That was like 20 minutes ago. That might as well have been.
I know, right? 20 minutes is a long time some days. Okay, we're going to pull this down. I'm going to go ahead and go into my font styles. This is something that I love. You know, I love my filters on my fonts. I'm going to pick a nice little handwritten font here. That's nice, but I think it's too cursive-y. This is always a favorite. I do like that one a lot. Engelbert's always pretty. Nope, don't like that one at all. Too thin. That one's cute. All right, we're going to go with that for our gnomes. All right, so let me show you how I choose colors. Now, you could, if you were looking for a specific shade of a color, you can Google that. So I would say chocolate brown hex codes, and it would give me a chocolate brown hex code. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go into one of my blues though. I'm going to go into green. And I'm going to kind of click around and find something kind of on that darker side. You know what, though? I do want to do a brown, so we're just going to do it that way. Okay. This actually is perfect. It is 7F5112. Okay, now if I wanted to play with this further, this is where this really works well. I could go slightly darker, I could go slightly lighter. I could really play with this to get that brown that's exactly where I want it to be. That's pretty close though. All right, so we're good. All right, I think I'm happy. I could take, there's no one like you, and take this down to the next, oops, I lost an L. That would be bad. Yeah, I could do that, and then just kind of resize this a little bit to fit better. There we go. Yeah, so I really like this. We'll go ahead and hit print. And we've got that the right size. We're going to go ahead and send that over. Are there any more questions or comments, Rhodes?
No, I think we are still caught up. Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. All right. So we're just going to wait for that to get to the print screen for me. This would make a great coaster. You could always drill a hole in it and use it as a hanging ornament or anything to put up as well. I think it's probably going to be a coaster. So we're just going to wait for that to get to my acknowledgement screen for my print. It is coming. Now, one thing I want to say about the Sawgrass Print Manager, or Sawgrass, my Sawgrass design tool while we're in it. So we talk a lot about saving, and if you were just hitting that print button, you're not being asked to save that into a gallery. So when we talk about that, it's there. Okay. That is correct. Haven't seen this issue in a while. So we're going to just check to make sure everything's signed and the same. And it is. So I'm just going to close my print utility and reopen that. Now you do see you have a new option there. You can either close your tabs when you do that, or you can leave them open. In this case, I do want to leave them open because I'm going to be printing some more of those shirts. All right, so that is open. That should be all I have to do. I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to hit open in the Sawgrass print utility. And hopefully that'll download. Okay. I think what we've done before is we've signed out of both and signed back in, so we're going to try that. This should let me go ahead and save this, so I'm going to go ahead and save it. All right. You normally don't have to deal with this. This is because I am moving around so much and doing so much with testing that I have had this issue before. It's not a new one. That's why I kind of know what to do. So please don't think this affects everybody. It's kind of a me thing. All right, we'll go ahead and save it. So we're going to get that saved. I'm going to try to avoid clearing the cache, but if I have to, I may. So we're going to go ahead and sign out. Actually, just to be safe, I am going to go ahead and clear the cache. I'm sorry about that. It's going to take just a minute to clear all of that. Just to be safe. We're going to sign back in. Okay. I always love when that happens because I get to see that all of my pop-up messages are working. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sign into here too. Oh, I probably know why that happened, and it would only happen to me. So my apologies for not thinking about that sooner. But I don't know. But anyway, I think I know what happened. My fault. All right, let's get that pulled up. Okay, that's good. We'll go ahead and hit print. I think I was logged into another version of it. Well, I know I was logged into another version of the software last week, and I may have forgotten to log out and log back in correctly. So that is totally going to be a on Rhonda thing. But like I said, same explanation. It's because I'm doing testing and other things that we run into that. Okay. We'll give that just a minute to finish. My bar's moving across. And we'll be ready to go. I actually did not see my bar moving across. Oh, that's my other thing. I didn't get a pop-up. So I'm going to hit print. Now, because I cleared my cache, that's where my problem lies. There we go. And that's going to open up into my print utility, and we are set. Okay, that file is downloading. There we are. Okay, printer's correct. Size is correct. We are going to uncoated wood. And we are ready. All right. I'm going to go ahead and check the press. Yep, I think that's enough resistance. Let me go a little bit more just to be safe. And we're ready. All right, now I do leave a little bit more paper around this to give me something to grab onto when I peel that off. All right. Now, a lot of people worry about positioning this and getting this on correctly. I will often, with the wood, just go ahead and do that upside down. And then I will just flip it over. You are noticing that even though it is going on wet, it's not slippy. So it's not going to move on me. I'm going to be perfectly fine. And I can put that in and I'm ready to go. Okay. And now we give that 30 seconds. So the only thing that's different, temperature stays the same, 375. Time stays the same, 30 seconds. The only thing that's changing is I am doing less pressure on this than I did on the shirt. And the way you can see that is there's not as much resistance when I go down.
What might be the indication that somebody's using too much pressure?
I mean, it's the same thing with true sublimation. You most likely are going to get paper sticking to the product. So a lot of times that's it. You may technically see some lines or other things, but typically the best indication of that is going to be that you have some paper sticking. Now, not like what just happened there, but truly sticking down. Absolutely love that. Yeah, that's so cute. Okay. So there's my coaster. My nice little, there's no one like you. And I love that. All right. So one more set of findings, tips, tricks that I want to talk about. So we've talked about sublimation. We've talked about kind of our findings and where we are now with fabric and with uncoated products like wood. Let's talk about those things that don't fall into those categories. So as you know, right before Christmas, I tested some cardstock, I tested some craft paper, and it worked perfectly. But I want to talk about where you can kind of play. So if you have a fabric that isn't getting good results, where maybe it's a blend and there's enough polyester that you're getting kind of a line around it, or any of those things, maybe a little discoloration. One of the things that you can do is you balance your time, temperature, and pressure. So if it's something where you feel that the heat is impacting the garment or the wood or the paper, whatever it is, you may want to decrease the temperature. But if you decrease the temperature, you want to increase the time. Same thing if you're taking fabric out of the heavy pressure, you probably want to adjust your time up a little bit. So one of the things that you can play with is that balance. So if you need to drop the temperature, if you need to drop the pressure, your time's probably going to go up just a little bit. Now, I do have one other thing that I meant to say earlier and I forgot. So I do want to cover that, and that is hats. What I have found, this is the one spot where it going on wet becomes a little tricky. Because if you're in a hat press is curved. And if your design goes into the curve, if you push it down, it's going to pop up. And when it pops up, it's going to wiggle. And so I do get smearing on hats. So what I have done is I have started taping it. Push it down, hold it with my hand, put a piece of tape, put a piece of tape. That fixes it. The tape does not leave any tape lines. Everything works great. So for hats, my new tip is a little bit of heat resistant tape. I may do a hat for you next week just so you can see what I mean. But tape is the key. We usually don't tape anything with VersiFlex light paper. Hats that are curved, only exception. All right, Rhodes, that's all I've got. Is there anything else in the questions or comments?
I think we're caught up for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you. As I said, we do have a wonderful workshop dropping later this week with Pavlo on color and adjusting color in the Sawgrass print utility. So make sure and check that out. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Our podcast, Ink Differently, we are in between seasons. We are going to come back a very special guest right at the beginning of March. So I'm really excited about that. And otherwise, I hope you have a good week. See you soon. Bye-bye.